This afternoon we have 3 high-profile CEOs within our industry who's going to give you a little bit on their thoughts of what it is that we are doing and where we are heading. It's going to be extremely exciting. So I've promised Barry that this session is going to be limited to the next 3 hours of light entertainment. There will be numbers, there will be charts, and so on. Just kidding. Yeah. So this being the last event for today, I think we should go right ahead. And please welcome Sharam from AirPR to come down and give a little bit quick 10-minute presentation. Thanks, Sharam.
Thanks, everybody. So what I'm going to talk about is the transition from traditional PR that we've all grown up with to what we call the new PR. And first, though, one of the big things I'm going to discuss is the exploding amount of responsibility that PR has from where we've been. Originally, even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, PR was responsible for one part of this red dot, earned media, media relations specifically. Over the last 10, 15 years, this has just changed dramatically. Our responsibilities have exploded, and what we've needed to do, understand, and accomplish has completely transitioned. And so now we're trying to figure out how the PR person defends their position of being the storyteller, the creative thinker, the business strategist. And really, it's not just enough to have an understanding or a desire to have data, it's what do you do with it? So let's talk a little bit about what the problem is today and how we can tackle that. The first one is around open access. The world we grew up with was around and focused on the press release and pushing that out and ultimately hoping that 5, 10, maybe 20 journalists would cover that story. And it was all about the relationship. And that is now really transitioned, that's really shifted, given the fact that there are millions of storytellers that exist these days, and everyone has a platform and a medium to communicate their message to the world. It's phenomenal, but it becomes very noisy very fast. The second challenge is that as a result of all of this, you now have mass storytelling going on at a very large scale. But the story or the message gets very mixed very quickly. You have everything from fake news to real news and trying to figure out what is in between. And as a result, multiple messages are going out and multiple narratives are going around your brand. And the goal, of course, is if you could harness all of these storytellers around one connected message, that would be the ideal. That's very difficult to do. So what we've really focused on is talking about how we can engineer a solution to this challenge. And what we've started to see companies do is change this from focusing all around the narrative of a press release to focusing around the narrative of telling a great story. And the story oftentimes, and the soundbite really, can be anywhere from 5 words to 10. And that's a massive shift from where we've all come from. And really at the end of the day, figuring out what that story is or what that narrative can become is really just the first step. And we're seeing companies now shift to telling their complete story on a channel that they can control as the first message. And that channel could be a piece of owned media. It could be their blog. It could be LinkedIn Pulse, which we found to be very impactful for B2B companies. It could even be a journalist that they trust very well to tell that narrative or that story as close to the original as possible. But then after that, what's happening now is they are amplifying that message, not across 5 or 10 or 20 journalists at top tier media, but they're amplifying it across now over the potential field of 1 million different journalists or storytellers. And with 5,000 to 10,000 new blogs starting up every day, it's almost impossible to figure out and know, just relying on gut, who to reach out to. So really, as we're starting to see some of the data come in, there are a number of blogs that are started in verticals and sectors that your audience is reading, and they might be second tier, they might be third tier, but they are moving the needle as powerfully in many instances as top tier media. And that's completely changed. From there, the whole point of all of this is to now start to drive this to a business outcome, whether it's driving someone to sign up for a demo of your product, to buy a product, to get someone to apply for a job. What is the outcome that you're really trying to drive that's going to move the needle for the business? And then restarting that process again to figuring out, did the narrative, did the message work on that channel? Did it get amplified by the right people? And did it drive the outcome that you care about? So once you get that seat at the table, as someone mentioned earlier, what do you do? What do you say when you get there? Now you can actually have concrete results and talk about how it can affect the business and the strategy. And so what we're starting to see as the next gen PR pro is figuring out how we can leverage automation and machine learning to determine the evolving narrative. So that circle that I just walked through before, it's going through and figuring out how, as you go through the entire process, is it working, is it not? How do we evolve it? And leveraging and starting to almost A/B test what's working and what isn't. The other part is shifting the energy to creative thinking instead of attempting to make correlations between fragmented data sets. All too often, we see the main problem being completely isolated sets of data in 4 or 5 disparate systems. Well, it's almost impossible to compare them. Figuring out one system of record that can house and hold the data, as much of it as you possibly can get access to. You won't get everything, but some way that you can leverage one platform and ultimately make a decision based on that information about what to do. Starting to report on metrics like visitors, engagement, message resonance. And I think it's really important here to say you don't necessarily have to force everything, as we've talked and heard a lot about, down to a sales figure or a revenue amount. It's PR's job to bring the horse to the well, but not to force it to drink. If you have a bad sales team, maybe it's not the right product for the market, it could be a host of challenges why you could bring awareness to a particular product and it doesn't take off. It doesn't stop from the fact that you did a phenomenal job from a PR perspective. So one of the things that we're starting to see is not that one particular outlet or one particular article drove 1,000 visitors to the website and another one drove 10. It's not the absolute numbers that matter. It's that the first one is potentially 10 times more powerful for your audience than the second one. And so now you know who to spend your time with. And that's really the focus. Being able to attribute specific business and organizational outcomes to the activities. And we talk about this, but being able to continually do this as part of the process that you instill. And ultimately planning future campaigns based on this. And one of the big things that we hear, especially the larger the organization, and we work with all the way down from startups and nonprofits to some of the largest Fortune 50 companies, is really how do I, especially in the bigger stage, how do I make sure that I'm scaling my team? And this is a really effective way to make sure that happens. So let's talk a little bit about PR engineering at play. So PR metrics funnel is one of the things that we have started talking about a lot. On the top are article volume, amplification, impressions, advertising value equivalents. These things don't show value. They're necessary metrics in some instances, and others like the AVE, they've completely been sworn off. But going a step further down to what drives the brand, sentiment, tone, competitive analysis, narrative spread. A lot of folks are right in the middle. As the further and further down you go the funnel, the business metrics section is what really sets it apart, to decide and determine what drives impact. And it's not enough, and I talked about this at the beginning, not enough to just have the data. It's leveraging AI to generate insights and recommendations to figure out what you should do with it. And that's one of the most critical parts of the whole thing. So the last piece, this is an ecosystem in PR tech. Folks might have seen the MarTech landscape, which is now 5,000 companies big. This is just a small subset. There are plenty of phenomenal companies in PR tech that are not even on here right now. But this is just an idea of all of the different vendors and opportunities and companies and platforms that you could leverage in order to go and solve some of these problems. So thank you.
Okay, fantastic, Sharam. You were exactly to the second, 10 minutes presentation. Amazing. I think we have time for a quick question to Sharam, if anyone have something before we go. We do have a Q&A at the end of the session, but if there's a quick question for Sharam before we move on to Mazen? Anybody? Okay. Yeah, here. Carlos.
Hi, I'm Carlos from Global News. You spoke about leveraging AI in order to create a constant narrative. How would you implement that? Because I can understand it, I'm just not seeing how a PR professional would implement that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the challenges in the industry now, and it's not just in ours, is that AI is being used as a buzzword and it doesn't mean anything. And whenever you have a lot of data and then you click a button and sort the data, suddenly now AI must be involved. Salesforce talks about the power of AI with Einstein and how it's being able to leverage that from a CRM platform, but they're still a pretty far ways away from being able to actually drive real AI. There's a machine learning aspect that's kind of a step in the right direction, which is basically how do you take all of the data that you have and looking at determining if you were to run a large analysis on the data, much like a human would, and then say, oh, it's actually 80% of our visitor traffic are from these 5% of publications or pieces of content that we've written. Something as simple as that, people are now lumping into AI as a way to drive the outcome, but using an automated way to do it rather than manually looking at and pouring through all of the data. So a task that could take you all day, 6, 7, 8 hours to do should now take 5 minutes. And that's really something that our company is focused on at AirPR is how do you drive results from the data by making sure the system will tell you how you can actually drive impact for the business rather than having to do it manually. And so the more technology you're basically putting in, someone might argue is driving to AI. I completely disagree with that. I say leveraging a platform that has AI behind it is really the way to go. So it's something that we're doing. I'm sure there's a bunch of other companies that are trying to focus on it as well. But really, it's leveraging technology to help you solve business challenges with PR.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Please welcome Mazen Nahawi, CEO for CARMA, for a quick 10-minute presentation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hello, everybody. I don't have any slides, but I'll just share a few thoughts, and hopefully they won't be too stupid. The way I see them, the way I see our industry, we have three major evolutionary processes which we are going through. They are built around globalization, technology, and research integration. And each of the three is being driven by what I would describe as an overarching thrust towards insight, real insight. A word which is thrown around all over the place, means different things to different people, but comes down to actionable intelligence. And that shift from data to insight is, I think, what's driving the other three evolutionary processes of globalization, technology, and integrated research. Let me touch upon each one of the three with a bit more detail. When I talk about globalization and the shift in globalization when it comes to the media intelligence business, there are a number of components to that. First, I would say you've got globalization of content. If you were a company in America, a construction company in Ohio, the world started in Los Angeles and ended in New York. But today, you could be that same construction company out of Ohio, and Saudi Arabia is a key market for you. So you're finding the nature of companies going global, driving a demand for content on a global scale like never before. Up until maybe a few years ago, it would have been fine to depend on the local content from your local market, or maybe even a regional market. But I believe that within 10 years or less, it'll actually flip, and actually there will be no such thing as a border-driven content environment. We already are in a borderless content world, and much of the ideas driving content are already global by nature. That creates globalization or global challenges in terms of language, in terms of data capture, in terms of data processing. But make no mistake about it, that globalization and that evolution towards a one world in our space is becoming a real factor, at least in my company. Time zone issues, the fact that you can begin reporting in Asia to an American client and vice versa. As I mentioned, the language issues, and most of all, when it comes to globalization, scalability is a major challenge which I think we need to be thinking about. The second point I'd like to touch upon very briefly is technology. And we were asked to think about artificial intelligence and to look at the different technologies which are coming around. I'm not a technologist per se. I didn't study technology, but I've lived in technology. I've worked with technology for a very long time. One of my former employers, Accenture, is a pretty decent tech play. And when I look at technology today, a lot of the foundational technology that is driving AI and is driving NLP and is driving machine learning is actually built on the same technology which existed when it came to machine learning in the late 1970s. And that's why when you look at IBM Watson promising to cure the sick using their algorithms, their automated technologies, but when they actually put that thing to work, it falls apart. There is a reason behind it, because the logic behind the technology in artificial intelligence and machine learning and NLP is fundamentally obsolete and out of date. Now, people are coming up with new ways of thinking of real artificial intelligence through robotics, motion sensors, and the rest of it. But the mass infrastructure of machine learning and artificial intelligence that was built on text or words is obsolete. It's out of date. And unfortunately for many of our members at AMEC and at FIBEP and in the communications industry around the world, I think we need to be very aware and very cautious about investing millions and billions into stuff which is already obsolete, even though it might not be visible today. It'll be gone in a few years' time. Invest in more cutting-edge technologies, but what that does tell me is that actually AI is probably further away from changing our industry forever than what some people are trying to make it out to be. AI is not going to be taking away our jobs. It's not going to end human content analysis. It will not end human validation. And I cannot see it overtaking the ability of the greatest computer this planet has ever known. We created AI, and as machines and technology continue to evolve, the human mind will continue to evolve. And if you want to look at probably what I think is the best insight into how technology and people will work together moving to the future, it comes from Elon Musk, who actually said the AI he looks forward to looking at is the kind of AI that enhances human behavior, that enhances cognitive processes, not the AI that takes away a job or a human process. And in the media intelligence industry, I think we need to plan for that, because this is a serious issue. That chart that you put up there with all of those companies, there's going to be very few logos left on that chart when you present it in 3 or 4 years' time. Because too many people and too many companies, especially pure SaaS plays, are investing an enormous amount of money in these pure technology plays without having a practical balance between the human mind and technology. And that's why 90% of these companies don't have more than $10 million in billings, and they're all losing money. They will be gone. Another 2 important things on technology that I see evolving in our space, which we need to focus on, are visualization, something that Sergi constantly and annoyingly reminds me about every time I see him. The importance of being able to simplify large data sets and putting them in beautiful form and simple forms to have them consumed in an effective manner, and mobility, where I'm not just talking about mobile phones, I'm talking about the mobility of the data in terms of being able to send your data, to send your insights across an enterprise or a corporate or governmental network. Finally, the third major evolution that I see in our space comes around the evolution or the integration of research disciplines. That's the circle that Sharam put up there: paid, owned, earned, and shared media. I tend to agree, and I'm saying the same thing, but I see it in a slightly different manner. I think, once again, like with insights, the demand for insight driving globalization, the demand for insight driving the evolution in technology, it's the demand for insight that is driving the integration of research disciplines. This isn't happening by mistake, and it's only partly happening because of technology. It's happening because way too many clients are saying, we're beyond the age of data. We need to get into the age of insight. We need to be able to understand what this data means to me in my real life, not how much here and how much there. What does it mean? How will it impact my life? And when we're talking about this integration, I'm talking about media intelligence, which means media monitoring and media analysis. It means advertising intelligence, from spend data to creative analytical reviews, to market research, to survey data. All of these are becoming one. And like I mentioned a moment ago, it's only partially because of technology that that's happening. But it is happening. And that happens to be in parallel with the integration of communications disciplines. The silos between PR and marketing and advertising are all coming down. They're not yet completely gone. It'll be another 5 to 7 years before that happens. But they're all going to end up being something named engagement or outreach. And the information, the data, and the insight that will serve this new integrated outreach or engagement practice will also have to be integrated. And that's why the research practices are going to be coming together. So in summary, I would suggest, it's my humble opinion, that there are 3 major evolutionary forces in the media intelligence industry today. Globalization, and that's driven by globalized content, scalable content, the need for large-scale language processing, time zone processing. Second, the evolution of technology from an obsolete, flawed, and dangerous automated ecosystem built on text-based AI, which is proven to be a failure in many ways, towards a more robust AI, which is quite far from where we think it will be in terms of existential impact on our business. And finally, the third component was the integration of research disciplines. But the key point I'm trying to make over here, and I'm hoping I've articulated it successfully, is all 3 components, globalization, technology, and integrated research, are being driven by the strategic and game-changing shift away from data to real insight. The kind of insight that will make a CEO, a comms director, or anybody who needs our services say, I'm finally getting what I'm paying for and what I actually need. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mazen, for your very positive sort of view on where the industry is going, which I wholeheartedly share. Anyone would like yeah, please. Do we have?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Mazen. Richard here. Thank you for your insights, which I thought were excellent.
Thank you.
I wholeheartedly agree with. But there's one I would like you to drill into a little bit, please. A very strong message from you that the AI software that exists, just to quote what you just said, finally, they said obsolete, flawed, and I think you might have said potentially dangerous, but possibly you just said dangerous. And you referred specifically to Watson as well. It feels to me, and this is only a feeling, not knowledge, that Watson is on a real upward curve. It's the hot thing. But you said that it's proven to be flawed. And I wondered if you could point us in the direction of this proof, because if all of that's right, it's fascinating information, it's critical to all of us, and I'd like to read more about it, but I haven't seen that myself, so perhaps you could point me, please, in the direction of the proof of this obsolete, flawed and dangerous.
Sure, absolutely. I get my information from a lot of the journals that we all collectively read, like Harvard Business Review, the MIT Management Review, and the growing number of the conversations you can find online about Watson and its performance. I think the key trend that you'll find when you look at the very extensive paid advertising and paid media that IBM Watson has been pushing globally for some time now, it's simply not matching with the business results which it's promising. And a growing number of people are noticing that. I think there was a fantastic article by someone who worked with IBM Watson for a very long time and then left them. It was a very aggressive article. I wouldn't agree with the aggressive tone, but from a technical perspective, he basically accused IBM of misrepresenting the capabilities of Watson. And he referred, again, this is coming from the article which was published in a mainstream publication, that with the hospitals and the healthcare industry, there has been a bit of blowback from senior medical practitioners on what should be robust insights coming out as being flawed data. Lots of other examples, and I'm very happy to share more of those write-ups that I've come across.
Yeah. Perhaps you could tweet them out later or something.
Sure. Sure.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to Mats Wängelin. Mats is flown in from Sweden, from a company called Biz Media. Please welcome Mats. Here you go.
Thank you. Hello. Can you hear me? Yes. Hello. Yes, my name is Mats Wängelin, and I come from Sweden. A funny thing that I've been noticed when I walked around here and met people is that quite many of the people I met has been in Sweden. And everyone say, I love Sweden. I was like, when have you been there? In the summer. I said, yeah, I love that week as well. So we're going to talk about the thing we do in Sweden, but not in measurement as much as you're real smart people that are here. And what I do in my company is that we do marketing, digital marketing, like search engine optimization. We do Facebook advertising, Google advertising. And I think the reason I'm here is because I met Ann-Sofie Krohl, who does this analysis and such things. And when we started to talk, we find this really interesting connection between the analysis and how I can use it in my work. Because when we start working for big companies, they often have some kind of analysis, something like that. But the first thing the companies I work for is to look at it, put it in the trash can, and start marketing. Because we don't know so much about what's in it. It's a difference, a gap between what we know, how to read this analysis, and how to use it when we do marketing. So earlier this year, last year, and even this year, I ran across something interesting in social media. You know, the Trump election and the Brexit, the odds were all against Trump, and odds was all against the Brexit campaign. And when we started to look at what actually happened afterwards in social media and such things, we saw that a really interesting thing that was presented in us. It was the same bureau who was doing the marketing for both pro-Brexit and Trump. So I pick up my phone and I call them and ask, what are you doing that we are not doing? Because those results is not almost impossible to reach. And I talked about something called psychometrics and psychographics. Have you heard about it? Yeah, okay. There's nothing new here. Okay, what is psychographics and psychometrics? Do you know what this is? This is an ice cream truck. Can you believe it? In Sweden, we have ice cream trucks. The ice cream truck drives your ice cream to your home, And this picture is taken about 3 or 4 weeks ago outside my house. So it's really running all year round. And when we talk about, for example, Hemglass, who is this company, they have reached the market for, they are the only, they have no competition in their market. So they have the web page, they have these ice cream trucks and such things. And they wanted to grow. So they started to look outside Sweden. And they discovered that the Germans, they also love ice cream. They sell 627 million liters of ice cream a year. The market value is 2.7 billion euro. Amount of ice cream trucks, 0. So this is the perfect market if you look with the usual ice, right? You can see that, okay, they love ice cream. The Swedes do as well. They have houses. We have it as well. And they have the quite same salary and such things. So if you look at something the same way you look at your own market, then you see, oh, this is a perfect fit. So they went to Germany, right? Here we come, Swedish ice cream going to Germany. What do you think happened? 0 sold. Why? They don't have the freezer in their refrigerator. That was one of the reasons that they did a failure, because they didn't look at the data in the right way, right? And they didn't use it for their own purpose. So Hemglass went home after 1 year. So that's the tradition, right? So Psychometrics. Let's see, the slides are really... let's see, back here. It's in a missed order. Okay, Psychometrics is about how you segment your audience, right? So you segment them by geography. If you're the first way we do it is geography, maybe, and then it comes demography. But now Psychometrics is the wing to segment. So when you only segment them by geography, you can see that the people are looked like, let's see, like this. Everyone is looking the same from above. For example, if we want to target Uppsala, where I live in Sweden, and we only put out the marketing to everyone in Uppsala, everyone looks the same, right? So we will get the result out of a targeting by you only target one target group. Okay, you can stop me if I'm speaking too fast or you're misunderstanding me. Okay. So, and this is the geographies. Since I've been in the media market for many years, I've been selling newspapers, I've been selling ads for, I've been in brand new businesses around marketing. So, when we started to sell ads for Uppsala Nya Tidning, it's a local paper in Sweden, we went to this, how much time have we went to this clothing store, for example, and we said, of course, you need to be in Uppsala newspaper because you live in Uppsala. We live in Uppsala and your store is in Uppsala. And then we came across a few years. Then we started to market through Facebook, and we said, okay, you have a clothing store for women. We can target the women's in Uppsala, right? You can also target them by their interest in such things. But the thing that happens with the psychometrics is that you can target them by their interest, right? And I can give you an example about this, because our dishwasher was, what is called it? Not the dishwasher, the washing machine, yeah. Our washing machine went broke a few weeks ago, a month around there, yeah. And when a washing machine breaks at our house, I'm the neurotic guy. I just type in a white washing machine, right? With a lamp inside, because our last one had that. And then we had this one-phase electricity. So it's just like the basic stuff. I Googled it. I knew how much money I could spend on it. I found the washing machine. I looked. I have it in storage. They can deliver it to my home. Bought. Ready. But if my wife, for example, had done the same thing, she wanted to buy the new washing machine. She's more of the conscious, the planning, tradition, habits. She has always been shopping from Elgiganten. There's a place you can buy a washing machine in Sweden. And she started to look at what washing machines they had, what kind of grade, what do you call it, grade, ranking, scoring and such things. Yeah, exactly. What?
If you
Reviews, of course, it's called reviews. And so then she started to compare the prices on Price Runner and such things. So, if you want to target a group of people and you want to sell a lot of stuff, who do you want to target then? I'm the guy, because I'm the guy who buys directly. But if you want to create a good reputation on the market, then you need to work with your price runners. You know what I mean. I have only 2 minutes left, so I'm just going to speed up here. Is there a question about this now? No? You see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ocean. O for openness, C for consciousness, E for extroversion, A for agreeableness, neurotimism. But you don't have to segment them this way, because this is just how you segment the data, like ANSI gives to me. But you can also segment them for, you know, we have these boss leader types and such thing that they're blue, red, green, right? So you can manage to do your own type of groups to put your audience in. But this is an old, I think it's created about in the 80s or something like that. So it's a known method to segment people. So let's see. For example, I'm going to do an example here. This is a hotel in somewhere around. We have Maya, who is typical extrovert. She's a female, age 34. James is a male, age 60, personality type neurotic. Lucy is a female, 30 years old, and conscious. So we have this hotel, and we want to attract all of them because we don't sell all the hotel rooms. So we need to make a strategy now to attract all of them, and we're going to do it on Facebook. So when we do this, first of all, we take the data that is segmented, and we put in our ads on Facebook. And we start to create the message, because the message is what drives the conversion, right? So, for example, for the open and extrovert, Hotel Jaber, this special offer gives you 15% off if you book a deluxe suite, or for minimum 1 week, any of our hotels worldwide before March 16. Get 50% off. That's the way to reach the one that are open and extrovert, right? But for the neurotic guy, the Hotel Jaber, book a holiday out of any of our hotels worldwide and get a premium insurance included in price. And then you can see they have life, this red cross for when you have this, when you're on this drowning, what do you call it? Swim? Yeah, lifeguard. Lifeguard, yeah, you have this lifeguard. And then we have my wife, for example. She's conscious. This special offer gives you 15% off if you book a deluxe suite for minimum 1 week at any of our hotels worldwide before March 16. But here is the picture that is talking to my wife. Because we also have children, we have this dream about hanging around at the beach, right? So, that was a 10-minute brief about psychometrics. You can find me later if you want. And yes, the last one. Here you can see how Trump accelerated in shares and likes in his Facebook campaign in, where is it? It's around October or something like that. And the thing that is that I want to make an example before. You have, you know, this wall that he was planning to build, right? In Sweden, we heard all about the wall. But we didn't hear anything about how we talked about insurances or healthcare, something like that, because it's not good news, right? So we thought that how can the Americans think that the building a wall is the right way, right? But it was the only thing that was shared for us in Sweden. But when I started to look at his advertising, I found out that he had these ads for these guys and these ads for those, but these are not so interesting to write an article about in Sweden. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mats. We are slowly running out of time, but just at the end of it, would like to share with you a couple of points before we go to a Q&A. So just like to take one step back and sort of try to define who we are, where we're coming from, and where we're going. basically including media monitoring and media or business insight. This is my own definition, is to get the right information to the right people at the right time and measure its impact. I think that having that know-how and that expertise is extremely valuable and is only going to increase in value in the future as more and more information becomes available. This becomes a product and a sort of know-how that will be sought after even more in the future. And how do we do that? Well, we do it fundamentally. We do it by structuring and measuring data that are available to us. So I'd like to just quickly share with you a little experiment that we did at MediaTrack a few years ago. As I think everybody else in the room, we have also been working with artificial intelligence and machine learning and so on. And so we decided to try and find out how good is it? Are we able to take a newspaper article and code it just by a simple measure saying, is this article relevant for a specific client, yes or no? Yeah? So we did a test on that. We built a small system that sort of learned from what an analyst was doing, coding for a specific client. I believe it was Carlsberg or something like that. And then the system started to learn. And in that parameter, there are basically two outcomes. Either the article is relevant or it isn't. So it's a yes or no answer. But of course, the machine, what it did was it gave us a number with what confidence is this article relevant. So on the yes and no scale. So basically, we found out that if you set the confidence level at 80%, I believe it was 80 or 85%, which is somewhat similar to what a human being would have, human coders. We found that we were actually able to determine around 80% of the articles whether they were relevant or not relevant. There were about 20% of the articles that we were not able to determine because they would have been somewhere in the middle, where you would still need to have humans to look at it. Now, so then we asked us, okay, how can we improve that? How can we, what plays into it? And we decided to sort of work backwards a little bit by looking at the data that we put into the machine, looking at the articles that we were using. So we asked ourselves, is the structure and the enrichment of the data that we put in, does it, the more detailed we enrich those articles, are the machines better at predicting what the outcome of the question, is this article relevant or not? Are they able to improve what we're doing? So this is basically what we found. So what we did now was with newspapers. It can, this is the same, whether it's newspaper, whether it's web articles, whether it's social media, whatever, the fundamentals of it is the same. We found that the more structured and the more detailed that you have enriched your articles, the better you are at using AI technology to predict, in this case, is the article relevant or not? What does it mean? Well, it means that we, in we took the articles and only put in a few tags around it, just a few items saying, what language is this, what media source is it, what publication date, and then we put in the text of the article, and then try to calculate In the next step, we put on a few more tags and so forth. So we found actually that the more structured and the more enriched the data is, the better we are at using artificial intelligence. So basically, the point being that it also is beneficial in using these technologies to take a step back and sort of look at, okay, can we structure the data better than what we are doing? Point is, use AI and machine learning software to code your articles, but do set standards for the structure and enrichment of the data that you are using. With that, a short Q&A session for the panel. Do we have a microphone holder? Yep, we have.
Very short question. It's Philip from Newton. Very short question for Mats and Sharam. You're both primarily engaged in creative industries. To what extent is using data and research enriching and improving your outcomes for clients? Yeah, to what extent? I mean, Sharam, when you do a campaign, how much better, how much efficacy do you attribute to the data, the research that goes before?
Go ahead. So historically, and we have clients that are just leveraging our software for monitoring and looking at and saying, oh, let's take the number of shares of an article, for example, as a proxy for does it drive any kind of outcome. And then we started to look separately at what's actually causing someone when they read an article to come to the company's website and actually sign up for a product demo. And we found a very loose, if completely minimal correlation between the two. And some of our, I'm just looking at my own company's data for when we do our own PR, some of our most popular pieces of content that have been amplified the most across Facebook, for example, actually drives almost no potential customers to our own website. And on the flip side, some of the articles that actually are driving a lot of potential customers to our website are not amplified at all. And not having that kind of data and that kind of insight is really what separates out companies from just continuing on with the status quo to the ones that are actually able to move the needle and drive a business outcome. And it's really hard to quantify what the difference is. It's a great question. It's really hard to quantify in a percentage what the difference is between seeing an article not drive a business outcome and seeing an article drive a business outcome. In my opinion, it's both the lifeblood of the business and what gets you a seat at the table and gets an increase in budget. And frankly, when I had the conversation or argument with our chief strategy officer who spent 15 years in PR, knows the industry better than I, and the original conversation was around, oh, I want to be in this publication and this publication. And frankly, as you all know, a lot of it is based on the CEO's ego and not based on data whatsoever. And when she presented some of our own data to me and said, you know what, it's actually the second tier blog that you've never heard of that's actually driving the business and driving your own brand and driving the company's brand more effective than that top tier media hit that you've been harassing me about, I quickly shut up. And that's one of the most valuable insights. It's what's best for the brand, because that's how you crush ego.
It's a good question. I've always believed, having been in this industry for 15 years, that you've got two types of clients. One type that acquires or buys media intelligence, monitoring, and analysis. The same way you buy insurance. Okay? You do it because you feel like you have to. And you fundamentally never really pay attention to it. You have it, but it doesn't really mean anything. And it's a shame when many of us deliver a lot of very good quality work to our clients and it goes unnoticed, even when you're sending red alert, something really bad's happening, and right over their head. But then you have the other clients who are a minority, but they have much bigger budgets. It's thoroughly enjoyable working with them. And with that kind of client, the demand for insights is a behavior. the demand for insights is a behavior. They demand real insight, whether it's a low level of insight in the form of accurate, no-nonsense, short-list monitoring, or high-level insights in the form of reputational analytics. They are a minority, but they're the ones who make us our money, and they don't mind paying because they value it. That's the way I see it, and of course, beneath both the insurance-type client and the insights behavioral client, you have an ocean of data. But that's becoming increasingly commoditized. It's what you do with it, whether you're a media intelligence company or on the client side.
I like the question because if you look at what's the difference between having the data from me and not having it, is that we are in a shift right now because my business is so young, because 6 years ago we still sold ads, and now we're talking about revenue and ROI and such things, and we have only the first time we started talking about ROI is 2 years ago. And here is the guys who have been here in this organization for 15 years. So we are a really young branch in the digital marketing. And often we are coming from sales or something like that in huge companies. And right now, there's a twist, because the tools we're getting from the marketeers are getting more and more advanced. And as you know, relevance is a high priority for Google. And Google are lowering the cost for the one who have high relevance, because they are making money on relevance. So what's happening now is that for 2 years maybe we have had this highest quality score on all our ads in rankings and everything. But since all of the bureaus is making the same thing, we all have the 10 pointers, right? So the next step to make the marketing better for the client is to use insights how to affect their market, right? So that's what I think is going to happen right now, and that's what we're looking at. Was it okay?
Thank you, Matt. We could easily have gone on for a couple of hours more, but we also have other important business to attend, namely AMEC is hosting a drink outside, which I think also is an honorable cause. So we are going to close the panel for now, but any of you that have questions, I think the four of us will definitely be standing outside at the reception. I'm more than happy to receive questions and talk with all of you. So thank you so much for coming for this workshop.